What is up, guys? Rick Hackis here with another Exotic Concepts video showcasing some more amazing fan-made exotics for Destiny. Now, all of the exotics that you're going to see in today's video came from the comment section of last week's video, thanks to partnering with the artist Benjamin Radiman, who makes these amazingly realistic exotic concepts. His art station is linked in the description down below. You should definitely check it out after the video for more information on the exotics we're showcasing today, and more exotics that didn't make it into today's video, and even speed builds on how he makes these exotics. This is the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon or armor ideas and have realistic concepts made from them. And we're going to go over the proper way to submit your idea along with some tips for getting selected at the end of the video. Now, before I begin, I do want to say that this video was a week and 1 day late, and a lot of people were freaking out asking, where is the weekly exotic weapons video? Well, those people would have known if they would have followed me on the official Cacus HD Twitter at Rick Cacus, also linked in the description down below. It is the absolute best way to keep up to date with channel activity and also see some pretty awesome tweets. Now, without further ado, let's go over this week's fan-made exotic concepts, starting with the M Angus exotic sniper rifle concept. Now, as you can clearly see, this is a Takenized sniper rifle. Now, this weapon is cool because it's essentially the dark version of the Zen Meteor, which is the new exotic sniper rifle added into Destiny with the April update for PlayStation players. Now, that weapon has the exotic ability where if you get 3 kills with that weapon in a row, what happens is it loads a 4th round into the 3-round magazine, and that extra round does massive damage and has a massive explosive radius. This weapon's exotic perk would be essentially the same. If you get 3 kills, it loads in a 4th round. But instead of creating a large explosion and doing its initial damage that way to enemies, this actually will create, with its 4th round, a blight. So as you're going in Destiny, as you're fighting the Taken, you've often encountered those giant floating Taken blights that slow you down while you're in the radius and shadow touch you. Well, this weapon would create those, but they would slow down and shadow touch the enemies. How useful would it be to shoot the 4th round at a boss and have that boss stay in place, moving very slowly away from the area which you've trapped it? That would actually be very useful when you're talking about doing boss fights like that. Whereas the Zen Meteor, it kind of just, if you get that 4th shot, expels all of its damage at once, which is okay against boss fights, but this would actually let you kind of put the boss in a place, not let it run away, not let it get behind cover, unless it could very slowly get out of that blight, switch to your primary, for example, or heavy, and really just go to town on that boss. It would also obviously be very good against other players, like in PvP, if you're able to put this over an objective and trap players. And even because it wouldn't do its initial damage, you could actually just shoot the ground, not actually have to hit an enemy, but just shoot the ground to put that blight there. This would have been the perfect thing to add as a new exotic for the April update for all players. Give the PlayStation players their exclusive, because apparently Sony got in bed with Activision, and then give all players a new exotic. It really sucks for Xbox players that they don't get any new exotic from the April update, and this would have been a nice way to compromise. Now let's move on to the next exotic concept, the Sandman exotic hand cannon concept by Nation of Deception. Now, this weapon's exotic perk is very simplistic, but also very interesting. It's called the Sandman. Headshots have a chance to blind your target. Now, already that's very, very useful. If you get a headshot, it applies somewhat of a Titan flashbang-like effect that just blinds and disorients your target. Obviously, extremely useful when you're talking about PvP. Also decently useful in PvE, just stopping enemies from shooting at you and the like, especially especially if it can work on bosses. If you can just keep popping off on a boss, then you get the blind effect, and it kind of is blind, it can't shoot you for a bit. That's quite useful. Now, how overpowered this weapon is simply depends on the percent chance of this effect applying. If it's something like 5 or 10%, I don't see this being too overpowered. I see this actually just being quite useful, but not overpowered. But if we're talking obviously about like 50%, this would be ridiculously overpowered. But if the percentage is low enough, I can see this being a very effective and very useful PvP and PvE weapon in Destiny. Now the next exotic concept we're going over is the Sabre, exotic sidearm concept by Spencer Dahl. This strange looking weapon has a few unique things about it. Firstly, it's an exotic sidearm. For goodness sakes, we need more exotic sidearms. The only one we have is the Dreg's Promise. Now, this weapon again has a few unique things about it. Firstly, you get to choose between the 3 different damage types. You have firstly solar damage. If you select this weapon will have a slow rate of fire, high range, and high damage. Next, you can select void damage, in which case it will have a high rate of fire, low damage, and a medium range. Or you can select arc damage, which gives this a maximum rate of fire, high damage, but extremely low range. Now, choosing between these different elements has already kind of been done in Destiny with the Murmur, which was a special legendary fusion rifle available in the Dark Below DLC. You could actually change it between solar damage or arc damage, and the way the weapon performed would actually change when you changed these elements. If it was solar damage, it would shoot a lot slower, do more damage, but if it was arc damage, it would shoot faster and do a little bit less damage, or the charge time would be a little bit less or something like that. But again, that's reminiscent of what we're seeing right here. Now, the exotic perk for this weapon would be called Timing is Everything. Reloading this weapon will leave a timed bomb at the location of reload that will sit for 5 seconds before detonating, dealing a small damage amount of the currently chosen damage type of the weapon. Now, I like this idea simply because it was a small damage amount. I'm really happy that the creator of this weapon was able to foresee that. Otherwise, this would be kind of overpowered, just being able to kind of go somewhere, shoot once, reload, shoot once, reload, shoot once, reload, and leave 3 bombs behind. Now, of course, you could simply have the perk only leave 1 bomb behind at a time, but still, it's potentially quite a powerful ability. But just leaving behind an explosive that after 5 seconds, when you're gone, maybe you want to reload when an enemy is chasing you, maybe you want to kind of run over an objective, reload, and then run away, and then when enemies come and try to take the objective without kind of knowing that you're there, they get that explosion. And even just a small amount of damage or a moderate amount of damage, enough to keep it from getting overpowered, is still quite useful. Again, you have a wounded enemy that's chasing you. You can, again, put it over an objective and have enemies come in, and even just hurting them a little bit is then going to give you the chance to surprise them. If you get that hit marker when you see the explosion, you can then kind of come out of cover, engage those enemies, knowing that they're already taken a little bit of damage and they're already weak, ready for you to mop them up. I love this ability. I think it's quite unique, and I'd love to see something like this in Destiny. Moving on to the next exotic concept, the Phoenix exotic hand cannon concept by Red Mage Rain. Now, firstly, this is just an amazing looking concept, and it would have 2 different exotic perks. The first one is the White Phoenix. Getting a precision kill on an enemy grants the player with a faster recovery for 5 seconds, surrounding them with a white flame. This perk also starts recovery for nearby players, but stops recovery when out of range. I assume they mean nearby allied players, not enemy players. Now, exotic perk number 2 is called the Black Phoenix. Getting a precision kill on an enemy grants the player with a stronger melee attack for 5 seconds, surrounding them with a black flame. This perk also gives enemies that are in the area Shadow Touch. Now remember, Shadow Touch, again, as we've touched on before, is what you get if you're in one of those Taken Blights. You get substantially decreased movement speed and also limited jump and so on. But the range and damage of this weapon are decreased. So essentially you get to choose between whether you want a more traditional weapon with the White White Phoenix. If you get a precision kill, you're able to regenerate faster. Also share that regeneration with your allies, or change this weapon entirely. Go for kind of a melee build where once you get a precision kill with this weapon, you kind of transform how your character acts in the game. You're no longer trying to get kills with the weapon because you have a decrease to range and damage, but rather you're then going for melee kills. You're going to have a stronger melee attack, and enemies nearby are going to be slowed and ready for the taking. This is certainly an interesting weapon. I can't really comment on how overpowered it's going to be simply because there's nothing to compare this to in the game right now, so it would definitely be a very unique thing to add to Destiny. Now, the last exotic concept we're going over today is an amazing one. The Atheon's Protege exotic heavy rifle concept by Mining Tabby. An exotic weapon designed with the glass found in the Vault of Glass. What an amazing weapon to add in, let's say, an updated, takenized Vault of Glass raid. Just saying. Now, this weapon, a heavy rifle, would behave very similar to the Sleeper Simulant, where it's in the heavy slot, you have to charge it up before you shoot it, and it would do a massive amount of damage. Now, the main perk for this weapon, not the exotic perk, but the main perk, would be Charge Finder. When this perk is active, the gun will charge faster. To activate this perk, you must get 3 kills with this weapon without switching or dying. So essentially get 3 kills with this weapon, and then the charge time to shoot the projectiles will be lowered. Now, the exotic perk for this weapon is pretty crazy. It's called Atheon's Realm. When you get a precision kill with this weapon, the enemy's body will explode, causing any enemies around it to be torn between time, which is where you can't hurt them and they can't hurt you for 10 seconds. That perk is a little too wonky for Destiny. It's a cool idea, but I don't see that actually happening, especially because 10 seconds is just such a long time in a multiplayer game. However, I do like the concept of if you get the precision kill, something crazy happens. You know, they are torn between time. They're teleported. For example, if you get a precision kill, the enemy's body explodes, and then any nearby enemies are teleported to a different location. 20 feet back, for example. That could be a great way to kind of clear out an objective, actually physically teleport the enemies backwards to a different location, giving your team a chance to advance. Or I suppose you could still have the torn between time effect, but with a much smaller time frame. So if you get a precision kill, then the enemy's body explodes, it activates, and all enemies around there are frozen. They are frozen in time for just around 1 or 2 seconds. They can't be damaged, but also they can't damage you, which obviously gives you the advantage. You can get into the perfect position to start shooting them with headshots as soon as they unfreeze. But again, you can't actually do damage to them while they're frozen, so when they're unfrozen, if they're quick, they can still kill you. Now that's it for the exotic concepts we're showcasing in today's video. If you want to leave your exotic weapon or armor ideas, all you need to do is reply in the thread I'm going to leave in the comment section down below. It's going to say, you know, leave your exotic concept ideas here. And it also outlines a lot of key things that you should include, including the weapon's name, some information on it, the perks, etc. So make sure you actually read my comment in full to see how to properly submit your idea. Now, some tips for getting selected. Firstly, you've got to think, is this kind of realistic to add into Destiny? Now, as you can see by the weapon we just went over, some things that are kind of on the more crazy side we'll still take a look at, so you don't have to be super restrained. However, you know, a weapon that turns you into a bear when you get a kill, for example, that's just not gonna be selected. Secondly, you need to really think, is this going to be overpowered? A lot of ideas submitted just give you overshields whenever you get a headshot or increased damage. Anything that increases damage is likely to be overpowered unless it comes with a substantial downside as well. So be wary of this. Follow those tips and you will have a great chance to be selected. Now, remember that the thread, because these video series are quite popular because of you guys, so thanks for that. And if you want to keep these series popular and show your appreciation for this series, please remember to simply rate or share this video. Really helps me out, means a lot to me and to Benjamin Radiman. Now again, because this series is pretty popular, that thread will fill up to the 500 reply limit very quickly, and I'll try to make another one as quickly as possible when that happens, so you can reply to that second thread. By the way, Benjamin does look at both thread, so you won't be screwed if you are in that thread number 2. But if I haven't submitted it yet, just reach me on the Twitter, which again, you guys are welcome to follow, you should follow, and then just tell me, hey, Dingus, get to the video and submit thread number 2, and I'll do that. So please reply to the threads is what I'm trying to say. Don't just reply to the actual comment section in general or to other random comments. Your ideas won't be looked at. Only the ones that are replying to the official threads will be looked at. Now that's going to be it for the video. Thank you for your continued support on this series, and sorry this video was a little bit late. I was in Hawaii. Now again, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, have a good day.